Welcome to the Writing with Purpose podcast, where I, Anna Woolliscroft, chat with fellow writers and outdoor enthusiasts about how we can embrace creativity and curiosity to live a life full of adventure that doesn't feel like hard work. I delve into exploratory conversations about my two loves in life, writing and nature connection, as part of my mission to share the well-being benefits they both bring. It's wonderful to have you here today. In this episode of the Writing with Purpose podcast, I solo chat with you about sleep hygiene, I ask where your head is, and I challenge you to create a rainbow plate. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Writing with Purpose podcast, and I am super excited today because this morning I've booked 2 tickets. One of them is to go and see the author Elizabeth Gilbert speak in Manchester. Really looking forward to that. I think it's going to be a very insightful, mindful session, and also I'm going to be going on a 3-day crime and thriller book festival in London, which is the capital crime, and already on the bill are authors like Ian Rankin, Irvine Welsh and Anthony Horowitz. So I will no doubt be sharing a lot more of that in the up and coming episodes when I can feed back to you of the adventures that I'm taking as far as listening to other authors speak. So never been on anything like that before. So I think it's going to be extremely interesting, very lucrative in terms of learning, of course, craft and skill, and also just interesting to hear, from these authors that have made it a success in books and television series. So now I've been ill this week, so I want to just share that in case I end up with a coughing fit, and if I end up having to do a little bit more editing than planned for this episode. I don't know what happened. I was floored for 2 days this week. She says, already coughing. So I'm actually recording this on the Friday before the podcast is due out to go out on the Saturday. But this really is the first day that I've actually been able to string a few sentences together without being spluttering and having to reach for the headache tablets and cough pills. So let's see how we get on. I've also got my partner downstairs, which is a little bit strange because I feel like he might be listening in on the other side of my closed door, and it makes me feel a little bit on edge. I don't know, is that normal? Does anybody else feel as though they get a little bit put on edge if anyone's listening to them when they're doing something? Well, not really that they shouldn't, but anyway, it seems weird. But I've put my big girl pants on and I'm ready to solo chat with you for another episode of the Writing with Purpose podcast. So let's get down to it. I've got my coffee here. One of the benefits of having my partner working from home, he's just bought me up a coffee, which is wonderful. And in this recording, I want to talk a little bit about where our heads are, and I'll reveal what I mean by that later. So where our heads are at, sleep, rest, nutrition, some of the latest creativity books that I've been reading and insightful podcasts listened to. And of course, along the way, I will share plenty of journaling prompts to help you make that healthy connection with your mind and get a little bit closer to what you truly want in life, which is why many of you listen to this podcast. So there's plenty of that to come. So let's get started with the words for wellness. Now, it's recently been National Sleep Week, which is all about emphasising the importance of gaining enough sleep and, of course, slumber quality. And I'm of the age now where I have broken sleep most nights. This past week, it was also due to coughing fits. But there are actually many modern life distractions that affect our sleep hygiene. And there's a lot of things that we can do about that. So it just really starts with us making an effort and setting that intention intention to sleep better, and some tips for you to get a good night's sleep. You probably are aware of all of these. Maybe there's a couple of new ones in there, but it does help to have that reminder every so often, because we can fall into bad habits. And as I say, it's all about setting that intention to actually make a change and improve different aspects of our life, and sleep being one of the most important. So a few general tips include avoiding blue light emitting technology at least 1 hour before you go to bed. And this includes phones, tablets, computers, and the television. Now, I am one of those anti-TV in the bedroom people. The bedroom, in my eyes, is for sleep, cuddles, and storing clothes, and it should not be inviting other people and other worlds into that. Excuse me, in my humble opinion, that is. So yeah, sleep in the bedroom, no television, thank you very much. Also, creating an ambient room temperature. Now, that's ideally between 16 to 18 degrees. So it's always good really to turn your heating off overnight, because you create your own warmth, especially when you're under the covers, especially if you've got somebody else there to cuddle with. And throughout the years, we all have those times when we have to kick our legs out or kick an arm out because we get too hot. So start with good intentions by just cranking the temperature down a little bit and creating that ambient temperature to sleep in. As well as the temperature, creating an ambient light level is also quite important. So the darker the better, really. And, considering things like blackout curtains or blinds will always help. Don't leave lights on. If you're one of those people who's quite unfortunate, maybe you've got a street lamp outside, then definitely the blackout curtains are an option. And these things all help you to get a good night's sleep, but help as well for you to become a little bit more in sync with the daylight hours as well, which I'll come on to shortly. As well, things that can help is having a warm bath, reading a book, listening to soothing music, anything really that helps to relax you rather than stimulate you. So anything digital is generally going to stimulate you. Certainly if you're looking at it, listening to it, not quite as bad, as long as it's not heavy rock music or rap music or something like that. Something that's just got the smooth tunes to help you chill out a little bit and, just connect to on a sort of low energetic level. Of course, avoiding large meals as well, anything spicy or sugary, caffeine, alcohol. And as a rule of thumb, everybody's different, of course, but aim to have an evening meal 3 hours before bedtime. And if you're one of these people that does need to snack, then a very tiny piece of something about an hour or so before you go to bed. I always know if I've had a meal too late at night, because I tend to have even more broken sleep during that night, and I also feel quite bloated as well during the night and the next day. So this is one of those things that it's about finding what works for you, but also to take note of the body sensations that you have. Do you feel bloated? Do you feel hungry? Do you feel are you going to the toilet too much, which might be that you're drinking too late at night? Just to be paying attention to what's going on. Now, a term I came across this week in an email received from Zoe Scientific Research is social jet lag. You may have heard this before. I hadn't heard of it before. I thought it made a lot of sense to me, though, because it's a concept that's linked to our circadian rhythm. And we all have this rhythm in its basic form. It's a 24-hour internal biological clock, which regulates our hormones, mood, and body temperature. And with regards to sleep, our circadian rhythm also regulates the cycles of alertness and sleepiness, if you like, that responds to light changes in our environment. So this social jet lag refers to any kind of misalignment between our biological clock and our social clock. And social clock, not necessarily meaning just going out on that night out on the town or visiting friends, but anything that doesn't sort of fall into line with our biology. So it could be work, it could be anything that we've got socially in the diary, just anything that might cause some kind of mix up between those two 2 clocks. And just in case you're unaware, some of the symptoms have been out of alignment, and they are very, very similar to jet lag, which of course is where the name comes from. And these symptoms are feeling intensely groggy in the morning, feeling sleepy or jet lagged during the day, experiencing poor concentration, feeling stressed, feeling depressed, feeling irritable. All of those things, really, if you've ever been on a long haul flight to America, further afield, Australia, anywhere where you've probably had to go over and then changed your the time zone that you're on by about 6 hours or so, you definitely feel that jet lag when you get back. And this is basically what the social jet lag refers to, and it's the same sorts of symptoms. So depending on whether you're a night owl or an early bird, then your circadian rhythm will be different. But in its simplest form, the message that's trying to get across here is to keep a regular sleep pattern, and that's every single day of the week. And although I try my very best to do this at the weekends, during the week I tend to get up anytime between about 6 and 6:30. Last week was a little bit different with being under the weather. It was generally 8 o'clock or afterwards, which still isn't that late, to be fair, but it felt very, very late to me. But I do try and keep to that routine at the weekend, and I don't do too badly on a Saturday. But Sunday normally I'm lying in until maybe 7 o'clock, sometimes 8 o'clock, which again, I suppose isn't too bad. I don't really get those social jet lag symptoms, but I guess it could be a lot worse. My partner and I, we went to a concert last week and we didn't get in until midnight. Well, that's 2 hours after my bedtime. I wasn't feeling great anyway, so I was already a little bit sleep deprived. So, these things can have a compound effect as well. So it's just important to pay attention. And based on that, from a writing point of view, you'll definitely sleep better if you write what I call a thought list at the end of each day before you hit the sack. Now, this list can be as random as it needs to be, but essentially the purpose of it is to just simply empty your head before you go to sleep. It's as simple as that, so that these random thoughts that are rocking around in your head don't nudge you during the night. And if you're someone who is a light sleeper, or maybe if you've got a lot on, maybe with the kids, maybe with work, whatever that might be, then it also actually helps to keep a notepad and a pen by your bedside table. And then in the off chance that you do wake up in the middle of the night with a burning idea or a question, then you've got a way of capturing it. And that's happened to us all. All of the greatest inventions, shall we say, those light bulb switch on moments, they all happen at a time when there's something else going on. So at least if it's in the middle of the night, then you've got the option to write it down. And just by the act of writing it down, you've subliminally told yourself that it's going to be remembered, which will enable your mind to settle back down once again, so that it shouldn't take too long for you to drift back off to sleep again. And there are many more tips here, of course, and we're all different, but it's about finding what works for you to gain that restful slumber. I just had a sip of my coffee then because I realised it was still sitting there. Right, so some journal prompts for you for the writing words for wellness section. Keep a log of your writing habits. I invite you to do this. You don't need to do it constantly. Maybe as a rule of thumb, try it for about a week and see if you can spot any patterns. So keep a log of your sleeping habits and include the times when you go to bed and the times when you get up in the morning, and consider how you feel in the evening and in the morning. And if you don't feel great, how actually was your sleep the night before? What happened that you don't feel great the next morning? And have a think back as well. And if you're taking a log of this, then it'll be easier for you to spot any patterns. But what happened that was different during the day before you had that bad night of sleep? And if you're logging these, you will start to notice any changes. You will start to notice any symptoms. You'll start to notice some patterns. And at that point, you have the information that you need to start making some changes. So the next prompt, free write what a restful sleep what a restful night's sleep looks like for you. And what steps can you take to introduce good habits that will improve your quality of sleep? For example, what do you need to stop and what could you start? These are very, very simple prompts that can lead to you just getting a more restful night, helping you to feel better in the morning. And of course, good sleep helps for cell regeneration. It helps us to concentrate better. It helps us to be more creative. It helps with problem solving. It helps with emotional regulation. The list goes on and on and on. So I cannot encourage you enough to have a go at these prompts and see where it might lead. Okay, so onto nature and discovering a nourishing connection. Now, I've not been very active this week, apart from a fabulous 17-mile run along part of the South Cheshire Way, which for those of you who don't know the South Cheshire Way, it's a 34-mile or 55-kilometre route from Mowcop in Cheshire to Grindley Brook near Whitchurch in Shropshire. So last Sunday, my partner and I joined several other people from our local running group, and we basically did the first leg of the South Cheshire Way, and it was a beautiful day. Started off a little bit rainy, but the sun really did come out and shine on us in the afternoon, and it was wonderful. It was mainly trail, which is what I love, because you can really take in the countryside. There's just so much more for you to see when you're out on a trail run. You can really get involved and discover that connection with nature. But I say we saw lots. There was lots of terrain, but there was also shin-deep mud, waterlogged footpath gateways. It was quite challenging in that sense. But there was cake at the end, so nobody complained too much when you've got cake at the end of something and you've burnt off a load of calories, so you don't feel too guilty about eating said cake. Then what is there to complain about? Excuse me. Okay. Now, I just had another sip of coffee there. Running might not be your thing. In fact, walking might not be your thing either. But what I wanted to touch on in this section is a crucial point, is something that I do consider it. I shouldn't say I've never considered it before, but it's perhaps something that's at the back of my mind. But that is posture. So how is your posture? How do you sit? How do you lie? Do you sit up straight or do you slouch? Do you look down the road when you're walking, or worse still, do you have your face glued to the phone? How is your posture? So for me, I can kind of sense when I'm getting tired or when I've been sitting working for too long at the computer. I notice all of a sudden that I'm slouching, and it would actually be quite funny if I recorded a time lapse of myself, but from a side angle, just to see how long it takes for my back to start arching. I could see that time lapse, and my figure would sort of slowly curve over like it's wilting away and it needs a little bit more watering. Anyway, it is important for us to sit up straight or stand up straight, indeed, because it's how we were meant to walk and to stand tall. And the reason why I wanted to bring up this point is because I listened to an absolutely fascinating podcast last week, which is one of Dr. Rangan Chatterjee's conversations. And it was with a lady called Helen Hall, who is a movement therapist, a running coach and a pain expert. Now, I was drawn to this podcast immediately because the title read, "Why Running Isn't Bad for Your Knees, How to Exercise Without Pain and Move Faster Without Even Trying!" Exclamation mark. So, of course, I was drawn to that because if you've listened to my podcast before, or if you know me, you know that I complain sometimes about knee pain on longer runs. Interestingly, they didn't actually give me any trouble on last Saturday's 17-mile trail, but that's possibly because it was trail, or possibly because of something that I'm about to share with you now. So on this podcast, on Dr. Chatterjee's podcast, Helen Hall asks the question, where is your head? Now, this might seem like a really strange question. Where is your head? Well, it's on top of my head. Of course, it's sitting on my neck. Where else would it be? Not likely to be carrying it in my hand or wherever. But where is your head is actually a very interesting question when you think about it, because quite often our head isn't where it should be. And that is in the sense of our head being positioned in perfect alignment with the rest of our body. Because if it isn't, then there is a weight management issue. And what I found absolutely fascinating to learn on this podcast was that, Helen Hall was explaining that on average, the average adult human head weighs 5 kilograms. But for every inch further forward that your head is from where it should be, you add the weight of an extra head. So if you think about this, if your neck or your head is slightly forward, if it's moved forward, if you're craning your neck, if you're dipping your head, if you're leaning forward sort of with your shoulders and that, then your head isn't actually in alignment with where it should be in terms of your spine and your neck. Then you could be adding 5 kilos, 10 kilos, 15 kilos, who knows, to the weight that you're carrying. Now, as a runner, of course, that is a massive amount of extra weight. But even just walking down the street to the post office, that's a massive amount of extra weight. So where is your head is a darn good question to ask, because when you think about a bag of sugar as a kilo, that's 5 bags of sugar extra that you're carrying on your head if it's that inch forward. So this is going to cause an issue for quite a lot of people, isn't it? Certainly when I run, I notice a lot of people they're really leaning forward. The shoulders are hunched forward, their head is caved forward. And I think if you were to take a tape measure out and do some measurements, there'd be a significant amount of leaning going on there. And it's not surprising really, is it, when you think about how certainly with a lot of modern jobs and roles, we sit at computers for the majority of the day. We're looking down at our phones, at our tablets quite a lot. We're probably not sitting in an ideal position in the car. We probably sleep with too many pillows behind our head. All these sorts of situations and positions that we put ourselves into are not creating our best posture. And they're certainly not allowing us to hold our heads up high. So this was a fascinating podcast for me to listen to, and I really want to pass this information on. And so I encourage you to please, please, please notice where your head is. And since listening to this podcast, I've been a lot quicker to notice when I'm slouching, not just when I'm sitting, but standing as well. I try to notice whether I'm kind of leaning more towards the left or more to the right, how my head is actually presented, am I leaning slightly? So I'm a lot more consciously aware now of holding my head high. And let me come back to this 17-mile run for the South Cheshire Way. I consciously held my head a lot higher. I was looking forward. So maybe, just maybe, that is actually a big part of the reason why my knees weren't aching on that long run, whereas they have done on 10 miles or even fewer miles in the past. So I'm going to include the link to Dr. Chatterjee's conversation with Helen Hall in the show notes. It is a long podcast, so please do be aware. You might need to listen to it in several sittings, but she does share several exercises that you can follow to find out where your head is. And the other really interesting part of this podcast is that if you have sensitive feet, so if you throw an absolute fit if someone tries to tickle your soles, or if you're like me and you can't really walk on a pebbly beach because it feels like walking on millions of pins, then it's also listening to that section about foot wiping, because apparently foot wiping is a concept that helps to desensitize your feet, which indeed can help runners as well, athletes, or even just walking, and again, just to help this correct posture that we have. So I think I've rambled enough on about that now, and hopefully encouraged you to want to learn more. So let me leave you with a few more journal prompts. And so first off, consider any areas of pain when you exercise. Now, this can be gentle or vigorous exercise. So consider any areas of pain and where do you feel the pain? And if you can, I invite you to describe the pain in detail and think about how long you've experienced the pain or how long that pain lasts when you do feel it, or how long does it take you to recover. And do you notice if your head is any further forward than it should be? Now, this could be as you're listening to this podcast now. Do you notice your head? Can you push it back? Can you feel as though you can be a little bit more aligned with the rest of your body? And take a few moments to just write down what that means to you. And then make a list of what steps you can take to improve how you feel. And these steps could be anything from drinking more water, because believe it or not, being dehydrated can cause a lot of stress on our physical body. So anything from drinking water to booking a physio or a chiropractic appointment, or maybe even investing in new technical clothing or footwear to just help you get along better with whatever it is that you are doing, that gentle or vigorous exercise. It could be walking boots. It could be some better yoga leggings, whatever that might be. This is your time now to use that journal, make a note of some ideas, and then take some steps to move forward. Okay, after another sip of coffee, creativity and explore your authentic self. This is always an area that I love to talk about because for me, creativity and finding ways to be more creative has helped my mindset massively. It has stopped me from feeling as though I'm an imposter all the time. It stopped me procrastinating. It stopped me from being a perfectionist. I really cannot express how important it is to find these creative ways that help you to live a better life. So I wanted to share an audiobook that I'm listening to at the moment, which is called The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. And this book is full of little nuggets about how to create in life. And excuse me, when I say how to create in life, it's basically talking about creating anything that you want in life. Now, Rubin's career has spanned decades in the music industry, and this book is no doubt a collection of his thoughts and his experience distilled into a few hundred pages. And one of the phrases that he mentions at the start of the book, which I just love, is how he describes creativity as bringing something to life that was not yet in existence. And I think this is brilliant because I've said many times before that being creative is not about being a creative or doing anything arty or performance-based. Being creative is just about bringing something to life. And that may be something that's mathematical orientated, problem solving, creating in the kitchen, which I will come on to in a minute, creating in the garden, anything that brings something new into existence that hasn't been there before. And I think Rubin has got it spot on there. So in this week's creativity section, I want to talk a little bit more about being creative with your food. Now, I'm no master chef, but I do enjoy concocting a little in the kitchen. And my partner always says that I'm great at preparing cupboard food. And I have to admit that he's quite right there. I do enjoy creating a tasty gist from a tin or a few leftovers in the fridge. And that's because we've nearly always got something like pesto or passata or lots of spices that help to whip up a nice flavoursome sauce, which is, the base of adding single ingredients to a good sauce is where I always love to start. So actually, just to drop in a thought there, I've been thinking about recording some future episodes which are dedicated towards different areas of well-being and nutrition and healthy eating, which would be one of my first choices because I love anything to do with healthy food, getting as much nutrition in as possible, avoiding all of the bad habits as far as convenience foods, ultra processed foods go. So I'm thinking about possibly creating the next conversation series that I have with some specialists in healthy eating and nutrition. So if this is something that you would also enjoy to learn more about, then please drop me a message in the comments or send me an email to hello@writingwithpurpose.co.uk, and I'll start to make that happen. Of course. So, anyway, where was I? Yeah, yes, being creative with food. So, I buy mainly single ingredient foods, and I always check the labels. The label that tells you the sort of traffic light label that tells you how much sugar and fat and salt which is in there. And I generally try and avoid anything that's got red there, and I try and avoid anything that's got more than one yellow. So I'm pretty much a green person, and I don't know, I just thought that my favourite colour is green, so maybe there is something there. Random thought popped into my brain as I was talking there. So yeah. Anyway, where was I? I've lost my track again. Oh yeah, being creative with food. So yeah, one of the ways that I believe we can get super creative with food is to prepare meals that are rainbow in appearance. Now, let me just stress that I am not talking about a donut with pink frosted icing and hundreds of thousands on top. What I'm referring to here is having a plate that comprises of a wide variety of colours. So, for example, and these are genuine meals that I eat quite regular. I might start the day with a bowl of Greek yogurt, and stress there, Greek yogurt, not Greek style yogurt, because the two are very different. So Greek yogurt with purple grapes, banana, cashew nuts, kiwi, sprinkled with chai seeds and a dash of honey. And then for lunch, I might have a green salad with cherry tomatoes, some chicken, feta cheese, pumpkin seeds, beetroot, and a couple of blobs of caramelised hummus. To get your protein in, you might also want to swap the chicken with some egg or some pork possibly, and then for dinner I might prepare a whole chicken roast with sweet potatoes, roasted white potatoes, peas, carrots and broccoli, and with those veggies I would always leave the skin on as well. They're the best things. Any root vegetables, the most nutritious part is the skin, and then anything that grows on a tree, usually the most nutritious part is the core, which in both instances we generally don't eat, or a lot of the people don't eat. So yeah, that is something to remember, to try and eat the majority of the piece of food, the ingredient, cores, skins, seeds, the lot is all worth eating. And for me, when I prepare this sort of meal, I know exactly what's going into it, because it doesn't come in a container or a box, and the ingredients are generally fresh. It's not something that's had to have anything added to it to extend the shelf life. And also the meals generally will include items from all main 5 food groups, which, just to confirm, are fruits and vegetables, starchy carbs, so that's things like white potatoes, pastas, breads. Then there's dairy, then there's protein, and then there's unsaturated fats and oils. So balance really across the scale with everything. And another thing with the rainbow foods is, and this is a big one for me really, is that they all look aesthetically pleasing on the plate. There's vibrant colours there, they're all different shapes and sizes. It actually makes me want to eat the stuff that's in front of me. I look forward to the taste, the texture. There's nothing better than having that burst of flavour that comes from your food. Yummy. And personally, I don't get that from a pasty or a hot dog or a pizza, and I'm kind of quite glad of that, to be honest, because those types of ultra processed foods are part of the reason why it's forecast that 42% of the world's population will be obese by 2025, and that's next year, people. That's pretty shocking. So that's almost 1 in 2 of us are going to be diagnosed as being obese, and our diets are part of that reason, which is not good. Anyway, that's another soapbox issue not to get me started on. So let's not go down another rabbit hole. And so quickly I shall move on and invite you to try these next journal prompts, which hopefully will help you to conjure up some magic in your kitchen. So imagine being given an empty plate to fill with wonderful, tasty ingredients, and your meal must consist of single ingredients only and not anything that is pre-packaged together. So, free write. What will you create? Describe your food in detail and why you chose those ingredients. And if you can, how many colours does your plate of food consist of? And what are they? So how many colours are on your plate and what kind of colours are they? And what is your favourite taste? Now, different tastes include sweet, sour, bitter, salty and savoury. So, what is your favourite taste? And where can you taste those flavours? And how do they make you feel? And finally, create 3 rainbow-infused meals. So a little bit of meal planning here. Have a think and create 3 rainbow-infused meals. They could all be evening meals, or you might want to spread them over breakfast or lunch and an evening meal. So create a little bit of meal planning there and go and make them. Go and make them next week. And please do feedback with, excuse the pun there. Please do feedback and let me know how they tasted. And that might be a new recipe that I can add to my cupboard concoctions the next time I decide to make something. So that wraps up this week's episode of Solo Chatting. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for bearing with my coughs and my sips of coffee. I don't think I went too off course there. It always happens at least once, but there's always so much that I want to try and get across in these podcasts, and there's always so many random thoughts that keep coming by. Maybe I should take my own advice, and rather than just keeping a notepad by my bedside table, I could keep a notepad by my microphone. And then I can make a note when something pops in, but then I'll probably go even more off track because I'll forget what I'm saying mid-sentence. Anyway, yes, I'm doing it already. Moving on. So yes, that wraps up this episode of Writing with Purpose podcast. And let me leave you with another quote from Rick Rubin and his book, The Creative Act, A Way of Being. And that is, the gift of awareness allows us to notice what's going on around and inside ourselves in the present moment, and to do so without attachment or involvement. I love that quote. And just let that sink in and ponder what that means to you. So thank you very much for listening. Please do subscribe and leave a review so that other people can find us. And please do sign up to receive my bi-weekly newsletter where I'll share similar content, a short story and more journaling prompts. Thank you very much and goodbye until next time.
Thank you for listening to today's Writing with Purpose podcast. Having conversations with fellow writers or adventure enthusiasts brings 2 of my biggest loves in life together, writing and nature connection. I've been a copywriter and content creator for 23 years, but my passion is writing for well-being, and I'm on a mission to share the benefits that putting pen to paper has for personal wellness with as many people as possible. If you want to learn more about writing for your well-being and journaling techniques, please connect with me in my Facebook group, Journaling with Anna.